KNBT, New Braunfels, Mattson Rayner here in the studio a little early today because I'm excited. We have some guests in the studio with us now. First, Betty Sue, how are you?
Very good. Hi.
Nice to have you here.
Thanks.
And James McMurtry. Hi, James.
Hi, Mattson.
Let me turn. Oh, wait. Let me do that. Now I can hear you.
Oh, I exist now. Good.
I'll figure it out. 30 years.
Yeah.
Eventually. Year 31 is when you figure it out.
Definitely.
Okay. So we're going to talk to James here in a bit, but right now I'll spend a little time with Betty Sue, and you are opening for James this Friday night at Floors in Helotes.
Yes.
Have you played Floors before?
I have never played there before.
Have you been there?
I've never even walked into the building,
Wow.
which I'm a little embarrassed to say, but it's true.
Oh, I think you're going to like it.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's a lot of musical history.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like one of those places I've heard about my whole life and never been in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, this is the first time for you and me to meet. You and I meet.
Yeah.
You and me. I think it's you and me. You and I.
You and I are meeting in person for the first time.
We are
How about
meeting now. So maybe tell us a little bit of where you're from and how did you get into music? It's a beautiful old Gibson you got there.
Thanks. Yeah. I grew up in Spring, Texas, which is just outside of Houston, and moved to Austin when I was 17, and been here since. So long time now, most of my life now here in Austin, and well, I guess now we're in New Braunfels right now, but Central Texas, and I grew up in a musical family. All of us played a bunch of instruments growing up and sang, around the piano and stuff, and but it was always something that you were supposed to do to be a well-rounded person. You were by no means encouraged or expected to try to pursue it as a vocation.
What kind of music was around the house a lot?
Well, it was a very, very religious, very conservative environment in our home. So it was really all classical music and religious music, and then in the summers when my parents were still at work during the day, that was like really the only time we'd play something else.
And so you pick up a guitar and instantly want to rebel, and
it has that thing about it, right?
yeah. So what was
Corrupting influence.
What was the kind of music that maybe would you ever listen to something that perhaps wasn't approved of? What was influencing you? What was your thing?
Well, yeah, but it all had to come through other people. So, when my older sisters were growing up, and they were listening to music of their friends, and so they'd make me mixtapes and stuff, and it was funny, I'd completely forgotten about it, and just recently I was telling one of the guys in James's band that, like, I remembered being in probably 5th or 6th grade and having this like cassette tape of the Violent Femmes, and I would listen to it on my Walkman, but I wouldn't even listen to it in my Walkman in the house because I would be afraid that my mom would be like, "What are you listening to?" and like hear it. So I would only listen to it on my roller skates, like away from the house.
Yeah.
Because I was so afraid of getting caught.
Was
but,
that?
Yeah, absolutely. That iconic album. Yeah, I know like every word of that whole album, and then. But then, my friends were listening to country music when I was growing up, so I listened to a lot of that too. And then, one of my sisters, when she got really into jazz, and so she got me into jazz, and my other sister got really into singer-songwriter music, and she got me into singer-songwriter music. And I think I was like maybe a freshman or sophomore or something like that in high school when that Nancy Griffith cover record came out, the Other Voices record, and probably similar time I was listening to like Trisha Yearwood, and both of those records I would open up the liner notes, and I discovered so many of my favorite songwriters for the rest of my life from those.
Yes.
So
one of my favorites, Gretchen Peters.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know Trisha recorded
Bust of St. Cloud. That was the same deal for me. Yeah, I heard that song on that record and went, whoa, and same record I heard a Kim Ritchie tune, became a huge Kim Ritchie fan, and then, growing up in Spring, it's that Spring Klein Tomball area, and Lyle Lovett was kind of our hometown hero. When I was in high school, people would see, they would report on Julia Roberts sightings at the Walmart and stuff. And, and he was always championing all the Texas songwriters. And because of him, so many of us learned about, the songwriters that then became our favorite songwriters.
Right. Well, he had the record "Step Inside This House" where he
Right, true,
records
yeah.
all his
Yeah.
a lot of his favorite
great
types of
record.
Yeah. Would you like to play a song
Yeah,
for us?
sure.
By the time we got to Richmond, you knew I was somewhere else. My mind was reeling down a different road, and you could see through what I felt. By the time we pulled into Charlotte and threw our bags on the bed, you hadn't said a word in hours, and I had torn my nails to shreds. It's dark with the blackouts drawn tight. I can't tell from here if it's 10 in the morning or the middle of the night. We're gonna lie here together like nothing's wrong. That window unit moaning its own sad song, and it's dark. Baby, it's so dark with the blackouts drawn. By the way, you veered into that lot, dragged so hard the ashes raced to your lips. Well, I knew you had so much to say, you just couldn't find the words to do your anger justice. By the way, I know I haven't said enough. I believe in who you are. No, and now it's too late. Just fall empty like the bottles in the back seat of this car. It's dark with the blackouts drawn tight. Can't tell from here if it's 10 in the morning or the middle of the night. We're gonna lie here together like nothing's wrong. That old window unit moaning its own sad song, and it's dark. Baby, it's so dark with the blackouts drawn. Yeah, we'll just lie here together like nothing's wrong. That old window unit moaning its own sad song, and it's dark. Baby, it's so dark with the blackouts drawn.
KNBT, Radio New Braunfels' Betty Sue here in the studio. Insomnia, Waking Dream, that would be Blackout, what you just played.
Yeah.
All right then. Great song.
Thank you so much.
So let's, this is a mighty record, 15 tunes. Let's talk about it a little bit. Where'd you record it?
Well, it's kind of a weird record, and it's not streaming anywhere. It's really just 15 demos. I hadn't put out a record in a really long time, and kind of just after the lockdown started, maybe a couple months in, there was this Canadian festival that had asked me to put together a Songwriter in the Round show and videotape it for them, for their festival pass holders or whatever. And so I'd invited Bonnie Whitmore and Bill Kirchen and Curtis McMurtry and Diana Burgess to come join me, and we went to a friend's studio and set up this nice little thing. And afterwards, Curtis came up to me and was like, God, I kind of wished you'd played this song and this song. And he named like 3 songs, and I was like, oh, God, I'm really embarrassed. I actually kind of forgot about a couple of those songs and haven't played them in a long time. And he was like, well, how did you forget about your songs? And I was like, well, I was in this other band for a while, and we were playing songs we wrote together. And also I tend to, whenever it's time to write a set list, I panic and I flip all my CDs over and I just pick a few songs and try to pick things that go in order well, Mm-hmm. And he made the astute observation that if you haven't put out a record in like 9 years, that's not such a good plan. So he stayed on my butt and really kept after me until I made that. And so he helped pick out 15 songs out of probably 60-something demos and put them in order for me and wrote the liner notes, probably the best liner notes I'm ever going to have. Mm-hmm. And so I've just printed up and it's been basically a way for me to try to start saving up money for the next studio record again. Sure.
Yeah. And folks can get this, where can they get it?
On my website or at the shows. It's physical only. So, But strangely, like, I just noticed in my BMI royalty reports that I'm getting royalties from these songs from like airlines and XM radio and stuff. And I'm like, well, somebody must have bought a physical CD and added it to these playlists because it's never been promoted and it's never been streaming. So, kind of crazy.
Are you constantly writing? Is that?
Oh yeah.
Writing is just, it's not a set aside. I got to write 10 tunes for an album, but always fishing for the.
Yeah,
the next.
I mean, I definitely go through seasons of not being as productive as I'd like or as prolific as I like, but generally, whenever I'm home, I sit at the computer and at least work on things that I've got going, I like writing.
Yeah. Do you do any co-writing? Is that something that you like to do?
I've done it and I've done it enough that I can't say it's like unusual, but and there are times that it feels really natural and exciting and truly, you come up with songs that I would have never finished or finished as well without that. But I don't seek it as much as I think a lot of people do, and maybe not as much as I should. I don't know. Maybe I should do more of it.
The co-write thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about this guitar you're playing here. This is a...
Okay, yeah, this is a 1965 Gibson B25, and when I bought it, it was in even rougher looking shape than it looks now, but it was really cheap and on Craigslist, and it had no strings on it, and I went to the guy's house, and he was selling it for pretty cheap, and I just kind of knocked on it, like all over on it, and I sang into it. Like I sang, he let me stand there for a really long time in his yard. I sang 5 songs into the sound hole of the guitar, and it sounded so good that I felt like this is going to be a great guitar, and I have never found another one that I loved as much.
You mentioned earlier that you were in another band.
Yeah.
What was that?
Just before the pandemic, we were working on this project called Nobody's Girl with Rebecca Loby, Grace Pettis, and I. We put out a record on Lucky Hound here in Central Texas, and we had finally made a full-length record, and then the pandemic hit, and then Grace moved to Ireland first for a year, and then now she lives in Nashville. So it kind of put a nail in the coffin for now, anyway.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Oh, they're coming for us.
I know. Shouldn't have told them about the band.
Yeah. So you're playing a Friday night at Floors, opening for James McMurtry. Do you have some tour dates as well? Do you like to travel around the country and play, or do you go over to Europe, or what's your touring world looking like for this year?
Yeah, I haven't been to Europe since before the pandemic, but I do like going over there. I'm out a lot these days. I'm usually out with James and his guys, and in between, you know, I'm trying to revisit the markets that he is
Oversaturated.
no, I was going to say where he's made it possible for me to play for more than 12 people at a time and you know, try to revisit and try to go back while they're still interested and remember my name. So, you know, that's kind of the name of the game.
Will this be a full band show or acoustic or what?
So I usually play like the first half of my show solo, and then a couple of guys in James's band are gracious enough to jump up on stage and make it a whole lot more exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who James? Who's the band right now?
I got Darren Hess on the drums, Cornbread on the bass, and Tim Holt on guitar and accordion.
So that's been your band for quite a while now.
That's the unit, yeah. Yeah, Cornbread's the new guy. He's only been there about 12 years.
Yeah. Well, I was actually going to ask Betty Sue to play one more song
sure.
for us,
Yeah.
and then we'll take a
We'll
break,
open this up.
and then James can
Yeah, we can do that.
play us a little of that 12-string you're holding right there. Insomnia, Waking Dream. That is
yeah.
the new record right now from Betty Sue.
Yeah, it's I've had insomnia since I was probably like 13 or something, and
Yeah, I know.
right now I'm on a good little cocktail of whatever, you know, prescriptions that help me sleep through the night, for which I'm extremely grateful. But I do have this every once in a while I have this repeating dream, and it's one of those waking dreams where you wake up and you think you're awake, but you're not really awake, you know, so you're frozen and my whole body will be completely frozen. And so I've had this dream like maybe 4 times in the last half dozen years where I wake up and I'm on my side and I'm completely frozen, and there's this crow standing kind of on my jaw, and he's got his beak in my ear, and neither of us know what's going to happen next. And like neither of us know if the other entity wishes harm, or you can feel that neither of us want that, you know, but I can't move and he doesn't move, and then I wake up for real. And the really weirdest part is that when I wake up for real, I'm never lying on that side.
Yeah.
Like it's like a completely different position. It's really strange. But anyway, so that's why the cover of the record has that crow with his beak in my ear, and that's my insomnia waking dream.
Well, if Ray Wiley Hubbard's listening, you just gave him an idea for a song.
Probably.
If it has to do with crows and crawling things, he'll write about it.
They're smart birds. You know, they remember faces.
Henry and me, we got a good thing together. Back in 98, we left for warmer weather. Just kids with fake IDs. Houston was big and we could disappear. Neighbors don't bug, don't even draw near. We can bust it out to Shreveport, meet with Jimmy and see what he sold. And if they're playing in town, we'll see the little band of gold. Try your luck at the slots, sleep all the way home. The station's just a 2-mile walk from our door. We never leave a car at the Greyhound lot. Henry says you might as well leave it unlocked. Henry's always got us a new set of wheels. Loves to strike his own kind of deals. This one's hot, out of Phoenix. Rolling slow, make a show. It's a 65 Ford Valley tag on the floor. We're gonna go downtown, cruise it around, drive it to the coast, leave it for the beach folks. Trade it for a wagon with a picnic in the back and see what kind of toys kids dig these days. Then we'll throw them out the window on the Gulf Coast Highway. So much trash out there, no one can tell anyway. Sunday night, I always call home. It's always Mom who picks up the phone. Tell her I'm good and I'll visit soon. Same thing I've said for years. She'll try to muffle those snot-nosed tears. She knows I can't stand to hear. Henry's never been much of a flirt, so I never worried about him chasing skirt. Him and me, it's all we need. Henry's new best friend is just an ex-sucker looking for a fix for a holding brother. Me and Henry were just like Bonnie and Clyde, mad for dead presidents taking on the slide. Only things we ain't got banks in our sights, just cars and fiends and hungry eyes. Just cars and fiends and hungry eyes. Yeah, Henry and me, we got a good thing together. Back in 98, we left for warmer weather. Just kids with fake IDs. Him and me, it's all we need.
All right. Betty Sue in the KNBT studios, the new record, or the most recent record, Insomnia Waking Dream. Make sure you get to Floors early enough tomorrow night to catch Betty Sue opening for James McMurtry. Showtime for you, 8 or so? Or
I believe so.
Yeah, I think it's 8 for Betty Sue, 9 for us. That's how it has been anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
We know it's a 5 o'clock load in. That usually means
5, 7, 8, 9 is usually the doors at 7,
doors
show at
at
8.
7, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Sure. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll talk to James McMurtry right here on KNBT. KNBT, Radio New Braunfels, and we are here in the studio, and now we welcome one of our longtime friends. You're one of my very first interviews ever in radio, James McMurtry. Hi.
Hey, Mattson. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Still touring Horses and the Hounds right now?
Well, we don't really tour on a record. We put out records so that critics will write about us and people will come to the shows. But we mix them in with whatever else we're playing.
Is that how you can determine when it's time to do a record in case a couple of the shows are a little lighter?
Exactly. That's when you do it.
You writing these days? Touring? What's going on?
Oh, just touring mostly. I mean, I've got some scraps floating around that when it comes time and we get in a crunch, then I'll knuckle down and turn them into songs, and hopefully I can find some studio time, get it done.
Now, you're at Floors Friday night, and I know that you have played Floors quite a bit. Is that one of your...
that is true,
what,
yeah.
What do you think? Do you like playing Floors, that venue?
Oh, yeah. Yes. I used to go there when I lived in San Antonio before I ever played there. So, yeah.
Okay.
Good tamales.
Yeah. When did you live in San Antonio?
I was there from about 84 to 88.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I worked on the Liberty Bar when it was over on Josephine Street. A friend of mine, Dwight Hobart, he got that place and renovated it, and it was when it was in that old crooked building, Baylor's Beer Garden. That's now, I guess they moved it on to the Pearl.
Okay.
But when I lived there, the Pearl was still a brewery, and the whole neighborhood still smelled like yeast. and the Pearl trucks would hit the building I was sleeping in on the way in.
Yeah. I love your 12-string guitar, by the way. I'm so happy that you brought that in. You also have one that's kind of red. Is that a 12?
Yeah, I've got that Guild. 6-string, but yeah, for the 12, I use this old Takamine that I found. They call it a lawsuit Takamine because they copied the Martin headstock, and Martin successfully sued them, and they had to change it. But
But you got one before.
But the thing about this 70s era Talkamans, they had really good wood. You know, real good rosewood, real good Sitka spruce, and they also had really good electronics.
Yeah. When you're say you're going to go buy a new guitar, an acoustic guitar, when you go into the store, you know, or wherever, what are you listening for to determine whether or not it's a guitar that you like?
If I sit down and it makes me play music that I hadn't thought of before.
Oh.
And that happens every now and then.
Where instantly
you just start playing different, and you need to. I don't know why I need guitars to expand my musical horizons, because.
Yeah.
But if I just play the same guitar all the time, then I tend to play the same progressions,
right?
Same licks. And
do you have a favorite guitar that you like to use for writing?
For writing, I generally use a cheap reissue Stratocaster.
Okay.
Because that's what I carry for my spare guitar on the road usually, and they're resonant enough that in a motel room in the middle of the night I can hear it, but my neighbor won't hear it through the wall and get upset.
Yeah, gotcha. Get upset.
Well, yeah, I mean, Petty tells us he got a song out of it because he was writing something on a big old Gibson Dove or whatever he had, and the neighbor's pounding on the wall yelling, "Don't play that anymore."
He went.
Yeah.
Would you like to play us one on that?
Let's see what falls out of this guitar this time. I never play in G. Don't know what went wrong, ain't known you that long to begin with. Leave the rocks in the road, stay away from the river, Virginia. There's not much you can do, except wait on a train when the road gullies out in a biblical rain. And that's how it's been ever since I can remember. I'm not too keen of mind, I don't pick up on signs like I ought to. So I won't sweat the cost of the coffee or the wine that I bought you. With your emptied out nest, the chicks have all flew. There's nobody left to take care of but you, and you don't know how to just be. No one ever taught you. I can't find much to say as you play with that loose strand of hair. If you had you a tail, you'd be twitching it. And I've got to get over the scare until you know. Until you know. Until you know. Until you know. I never saw such a cold day in June, did you ever, Virginia? In our young days, the old people called it Blackberry winter. As the mail plane goes out at a slow rate of climb, this cold rain don't help with your low state of mind. Hanging down like the fog on the ridge, you can't tell what's in it. And you stare me down hard and you ask me why I even care. It's not that I'm any Sir Galahad, there just needs to be somebody there to tell you no. To tell you no. To tell you no. To tell you no. Your bags are all packed. You're not coming back, that's for certain. And the landlady won't like the stains on the rugs and the curtains. That's just wear and tear, such as happens in life. Folks around here live to gossip and gripe, so I won't tell a soul what they'll never know, never hurt 'em. And I found the letter you left at the foot of the stairs. And I heard the horn blow, the train's pulling out. I hope you find somebody there to tell you no. To tell you no. To tell you no. To tell you no. Leave the rocks in the road. Stay away from the river, Virginia.
James McMurtry here in the KNBT studios, playing tomorrow night at Floor's Country Store in Helotes. Last time I saw you play Green Hall before the show, there was, the men's room / backstage. There was a little area that you had kind of marked off. And I said, "What's behind there?" And you said, "Well, that's where I change." And I didn't know what you meant. I just wasn't hip, and I thought, change. He's joking with me, but no. You put on a dress.
I did.
Are you still doing that?
Occasionally, yeah. Wherever we're in states that have anti-drag laws, we tend to try to draw attention to that because it's ridiculous. It's fascism on the move. When fascism starts out, usually they try to pick on small groups that are kind of on the fringes of society that not everybody takes part in, and not everybody's going to stick up for them. And then they move on to everybody else. And the thing about this anti-drag hysteria, it's just kind of ridiculous. They say it's about protecting kids, and there's some story about drag troops going to kindergartens and gyrating in front of the kids. I don't know. That seems rather implausible to me because, I mean, if you survey the ranks of predatory pedophiles and convicted child sex offenders, you're not going to find a lot of drag performers. Mm-hmm. They tend to want a target-rich environment like the clergy or Little League coaching or youth counseling of some sort, some position where they're in contact with a lot of kids and they have the inherent trust of the parents due to their station. Mm-hmm. So nobody, the kids will stay silent because nobody's going to back them. That's why so many pedophile priests got away with it for so long, because in that culture, nobody's going to question the priest. He's a man of God. Mm-hmm. And the same for Boy Scout counselors and Boy Scout leaders, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not to say they're all bad, but that's what a predator is going to go for. Not a drag troop's not going to go to a school and try to put themselves out of business. So that story is kind of like the story you hear on every lake in Texas about this water skier that died from skiing into a swarm of moccasins. You hear that everywhere, but nobody seems to know anybody that it actually happened to. It's a story that took on a life of its own. And so that's what they're using to promote these anti-drag laws, just to separate drag queens, to give everybody somebody to pick on, mm-hmm. to learn the joys of dehumanization of the other. Mm-hmm. And so we just want to highlight that before it really gets rolling.
Well, I recall I was at the show, and I recall after you had changed and went back on stage in a dress and played some songs, you finished the show, and I think you said something like, there, nobody died.
Well, yeah,
That's right.
I mean,
Nobody got
we're-
hurt, right?
I mean, who are we hurting doing that? It's not like we're putting razor wire in a river or something like that. You know?
Hey, I've got, let's see, I've got to take a quick break right now,
Okay.
and then I'd love to have you play,
Sure,
play
we'll
another
do
one.
one more. Yeah.
Okay, great. James McMurtry in here. KNBT 92.1 FM with Mattson here. James McMurtry joining me in the studio. I mentioned my first interview with you was It Had to Happen. That came out in 1997, didn't it?
I think it was 95. I'm not sure. It might have been 97.
Well, it couldn't have been 95 with me because
You're right. Yeah, it was the third record. Yeah, it had to. Or Where'd You Hide the Body was. Yeah, that was the 95 record. And then,
Yeah, right.
So it would have been about 97. Yeah.
And early in your career, you did something with John Mellencamp. Is that?
Yeah, he did my first. He produced my first record and executive on the second one.
Did you learn anything, or did working with him that you still maybe today draw on? Or?
Well, I learned a lot of percussion tricks that were helpful back in the analog days, because if you had a little wave in the rhythm track back then, you couldn't move beats around like you can now.
Yeah.
You just had to deal with it. So the way I would do that is put some kind of percussion thing in there to draw your ear away from it. It's
Right.
like, hey, look over here.
Yeah. I feel very fortunate that I got into radio about 3 years right before computers for radio hit. So I did have 3 good years in radio of splicing tape, razor wire,
Oh, yeah.
all
deep
of that.
breath.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. Right.
Yeah, I don't miss that part. I like computers for that.
Yeah, I remember those days. So tomorrow night, Floor's Country Store in Helotes with James McMurtry, Betty Sue opening the show at 8. James on 9-ish. 9-ish. And then you still on the road right now, or taking any time?
We just got home. We've been out for about a month. We did. We started in Santa Fe and worked our way over to the West Coast, and then up as far as Tacoma, Washington, and back over through Montana, and bounced around Montana and Idaho for a little while, and then back down through Colorado. And it's a couple of North Texas dates, and now we're home. And then early September, we're starting out east again.
Mm-hmm. So who drives the van?
I do. Well, I do the early shift, and when I burn out, Cornbread drives usually.
All right. Would you like to play us one more?
Yeah,
then?
we'll do one. We'll see if I get Betty Sue to harmonize on this. Yeah, back before lockdown, we used to spend a lot of time going back and forth across Western Canada, where the gigs are a long way apart, but and they grow this stuff up there that makes this chartreuse blossom about the color of those yellow buttons across the top of that console there. And about that bright, it goes way out to the edge of the world, and we didn't know what it was, and being Americans, we didn't stop to ask either. And one day we came to a sign that said Canola processing with a phone number, and I was able to finish the song finally. I was thinking about you crossing southern Alberta. Canola fields on a July day, about the same chartreuse as that 69 bug you used to drive around San Jose. Never knew where my old white Lincoln might take you. Party on wheels with suicide doors. Bring the kids and the dogs and your grandma too. We always had room for more. Till that white knuckle ride back from Santa Cruz, second best surfer on the Central Coast, had you wrapped up all the way back to Los Gatos, and I could have cut his throat. And it wasn't like we were an item to start with, it had no basis in fact. But the whiskey could push me to sudden extremes. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about that. Take my hand hand, Marine. Take a death grip on some part of me. Keep me from drifting far out to sea, or I'll be lost out there. We all filtered away with the days getting shorter, seeking our place in the greater scheme. Kids and careers and a vague sense of order, busting apart at the seams. Now I heard you switched coast, moved in with your sister. Doubt you'd have called it familial bliss. We met up in Brooklyn before it went hipster. You carried your keys in your fist. Then a way back corner of a crosstown bus, we were hiding out under my hat, cashing in on a 30-year crush. You can't be young and do that. You can't be young and do that. Take my hand, Marie. Take a death grip on some part of me. Keep me from drifting far out to sea, or I'll be lost out there. Or I'll be lost out there. I was thinking about you crossing southern Alberta. Canola fields at harvest time look like tumbleweeds all raked up into rows, brown rusty contour lines. Now I heard you switched coast, moved in with your sister. Oh yeah. And there's not much moving on the romance radar. Not that I'm craving it all that much, but I still need to feel every once in a while the warmth of a smile and a touch. And in a way back corner of a crosstown bus, we were hiding out under my hat, cashing in on a 30-year crush. You can't be young and do that. 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 Take my hand, Marine. Take a death grip on some part of me. Keep me from drifting far out to sea, or I'll be lost out there. Or I'll be lost out there. Or I'll be lost out there.
Canola Fields. James McMurtry in the KNBT studios. You can always tell when we're live because a chair will creak or something.
Yeah.
So that's
Give it away. Yeah.
That's the deal here. Well, I appreciate you both coming in and hanging out with me today.
Thanks, Mattson. Thanks for having us.
Anytime.